So this is where they are, way up here in the area near where Dan was, up very top of north area, right by Syria, Caesarea Philippi. And this is a time that big things are happening in their conversations. Private conversation. I don't think he was with all his disciples. I think he was only with the 12. And I think not far was others, like really close, but he really focused, I think, on the apostles. The others could have been really close too, but anyway. So there is so much in this. So as you remember, if you've been following me, in verse 31, he said, this is what the Messiah, this is what the Son of Man, which, by the way, is not used in the other parts of the Bible, like in the letters of Paul and all that. So I don't think one of the reason I think this is definitely authentic and they didn't make this up later is like the writers wrote this just like it really wasn't him. It really was him because it wasn't a favorite phrase, Son of Man, in the rest of the New Testament. It was in the Gospels. So I think that shows, out of many other reasons, why this is for real, this really did happen. It isn't made up. They didn't, anyway, it's authentic. All right, so what it says, and he began to teach them, the Son of Man must suffer and be rejected, be killed, and 3 days later, 3 days later, he's going to rise again. You know what happened? Peter, who just confessed that he was a Christ, which is a kind of a mountain peak experience. And it was a Father that revealed it to him. By the way, Peter didn't mention it to Mark. I mean, Peter evidently might not have mentioned to Mark, or Mark, he just said, don't write that down. About, blessed are you, Peter, or Simon, son of John. For flesh and blood hasn't revealed this to you. Your Father in heaven has revealed. Like, really? Really? That's in Matthew 16. That part wasn't mentioned in Luke 9, by the way, but it isn't mentioned in Mark's gospel, probably because Peter said, don't put that down, or don't record it. I do want to say right now, though, that life is like this. And spiritually, a lot of times it's like this too. You're not saved and suddenly you get saved and you come up here and somewhere in here you experience something of God. I've had this a lot, especially as a new Christian for several years. It felt like my emotions went up and down. I felt like a Christian. I didn't feel like a Christian, various things. You kind of go up and down like a roller coaster. And you have these wonderful times when God shows himself, or he speaks to you, or he answers prayer, or various things. Well, I think he was at a peak right here. He said, you are the Christ, and Jesus Christ said, yeah, you got it, Peter, yay. And then as soon as he said that, he said, now the Son of Man must go through all this horrible stuff, be rejected and all. And then, so that kind of went like a bomb. And Peter, lovingly, he rebuked him. Peter rebuked Jesus. What was he thinking? That's the point. He just was impulsive. Just quick feeling. No, it can't be you. Little did he know that there was a spirit behind him speaking that. I think it was literally the devil himself. He said, no, it can't happen. And he listened to it, he spoke it. Damn. He went down. Because then Jesus, who just complimented Peter and praised God for what he did, praised him, blessed are you, rebuked him and said, get behind me, Satan. Get out of my sight, Satan. Away from me, Satan. Fall back in line, Satan. Get behind me. Went right down. So that could happen. I've had it over and over, by the way, where I've had really an amazing thing that God did in my life or something. And I just, right after that, I sin. I do something, God uses me, and boom, because the devil didn't like it. He got mad and he came at me and I fell into sin. I just blew it somehow. I fell into temptation. Right here, went right down here. So I'm more cautious about things like this. I know this is a God moved just sin. Then I'm more cautious about what happens in the next hours of the day or whatever. All right, so why did Peter rebuke him? I think, number one, because he really loved him from the heart. It was a warm-hearted, oh no, Jesus. Now, what he was saying is, you're not going to go through that. He said, Jesus, you're not going to go through that. It says, he began to rebuke him like, nah, no, you're not, that's not going to be you, Jesus. You're not going to go through that. Like suffering and all. That's, first of all, he's thinking, that's not what the Messiah is supposed to do. And then he thought about his wonderful close friend, very close friend, one of his best friends is, Peter and Jesus were very close friends. Because of his heart love. He was sincere in his heart love. He was wrong, but he was sincere. Impulse, just open your mouth and speak it real quick. Don't think about it. I've had that a lot. Impulse. I blow it because I don't think first. Third thing is maybe a bit of a self-confidence, presumptuous. Like, you know, hey, no, that's not going to happen to you, Jesus. He was confident that he was right. Walk humbly. Stay low. Ignorance. Obviously, he was ignorant of what he was saying. He did not know what he was saying. He was just saying whatever. He's done that at other times, by the way. Did that a lot of times. I remember on the Mount of Transfiguration, he said, maybe we should build tabernacles for you, all three of you, Moses, Elijah, and you, Jesus, and all, you know, no. Ignorance, he didn't know what he was saying. And not recognizing who it was that he was rebuking. Like, Peter, do you know who you're saying is wrong? You're trying to correct Jesus? Never, ever did anyone correct him. Now, there were people like the Pharisees who were trying to challenge him all the time. But Peter was challenging Jesus. Not a good thing. All right. And then it says, when he turned about and looked on his, then he turned about, Peter, and when he turned about and looked on the disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, so, oh, by the way, Peter took him. See, here's Peter. Here's my Peter. He kind of pulled him away from the crowd down here. He kind of pulled him away and said, that's not going to happen to you, Jesus. Well, Jesus, it says, he's out here now. Jesus turns towards them. I think Peter literally took him, it seems like in the actual original, the Greek, that he pulled him away. And Jesus turned to all of his disciples and he rebuked Peter, I think who's behind him at this point. He said, get behind me, Satan. Now, Jesus is not calling Peter Satan, in my opinion, at all. He knows he's not Satan and he loves Peter. But he recognized immediately the voice that was speaking through Peter. Peter's a good guy. God just spoke to him. God just spoke through Peter and said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus literally said, it's not flesh and blood, it's not human beings that revealed that to you, it's my Father which is in heaven did that. Blessed are you. Now, he turns and says, he rebukes Satan. He says, get behind me, Satan. He's not calling Peter Satan, it sounds like it. He's speaking to the spirit within Satan. And he realizes Satan is resisting the will of God. The word Satan means adversary, opposer. He's opposing, he's coming against what God's will is. And God's will is for him to go to the cross. By the way, he used the exact same phrase that he did in the wilderness. Get behind me, Satan. See, he said, no, this is that same voice that attacked me in the wilderness. Do you remember that when he said, I'll give you all the kingdoms of this world, if you'll bow and worship me? I'll give you all of this. He came to get it, to bring it back to God. It's not the way. The way to heaven is not through ease and fun and, I mean, easy road and, you know, just do whatever you want. It's not the way to heaven. It's a road that's tougher than that. It's a narrow road. And he had to take the narrow road if he's going to go on our behalf to God, back to God. So he spoke to them and he said, he rebuked all of them. I think they may have all had the same feelings. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Although he pulled him aside, they may have overheard him. And that's why he turned and said to them, he knows they heard that. He said, no, you got it wrong on what the Messiah is supposed to do. It's not my job description. It's not my mission. Or also he kind of realized that all of them would agree with him. So he rebuked Peter, but he spoke to all of them. That's what it says. It says, but when he had turned about and looked on his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, get behind me, Satan. For you don't, this verse says, savorest not the things that be of God, but the things that be of men. You're not thinking about the things of God. You don't think about things of God. You're thinking in the same terms as man do. You're thinking with human logic. And it doesn't seem logical for him to be able to save Israel by going to a cross. You know, you're supposed to save Israel by taking out your sword and fighting all the enemies of Israel. That's the way humans are thinking, and Satan was thinking that too. I don't know how much Satan knew. I don't think he knew much, but he just came against Jesus over and over. The sad thing is that well, there's so much here. The sad things, well, you know what? I'm going to do the next video, and I'm going to pick it back up. I'm going to leave you hanging. But this is because it gets really long, as you know. This is really powerful. He rebuked him. Interesting that he rebuked him, and Jesus turned around and rebuked him right back. There is a time for that. Okay. I think I will say... I'll say once, no, I'll say the next 2 videos about this very thing. Nah, I'm going to send it. Go ahead and go through now, real quick. This is good, because otherwise I'll stay on this too long. It's going to stay too long. Lessons to learn from this, by the way. Really, really good lessons. There's a lot here. One is, but listen to it. It's worth listening. Number 1, Satan attacks at any time. The Bible says, be sober, be vigilant. Be self-controlled and in your mind, very clear, sober-minded and all. Vigilant means be alert, be aware, for the devil as a roaring lion seeks whom he may devour. So you have to be on guard, like you're in the jungles or something, and the devil can pounce on you, and he's a prowler. He's ready to get you. But you can trust Jesus and be ready at all times. Satan can come at any time. Happened with Peter. You go from a high mountain to a low valley. Suddenly you're up on the top of the mountain, like I said before, and now you go really low because Satan attacks you. Through friends and family. That was one of his best friends. Satan can use even family members, brothers, sisters, moms, dads, and they make mistakes. Humans make mistakes. You got to be ready even with everybody that's the closest to you. Well-meaning, loved ones. So be careful of that. When you get married, the enemy will sometimes use your spouse, your husband or wife or whatever. He uses all sorts of people. You can be deceived instantly. You can be deceived. I can be deceived. I can be tricked, duped. Instantly, you can get the wrong idea because Satan just spoke it to you. Beware. Great Christians can mess up. Simon Peter was a great man. God really used him in a great way. And I mean, how many people do you know that walked across water? Simon Peter walked across water. He was healing many people. He became the #1. He became the first preacher after the resurrection of Jesus. He came out and spoke to thousands and thousands of people. 3,000 people got saved because of Peter's message. But there's times he messes up, and even Christians, great Christians, can mess up. David was a great man of God, and he messed up. Even led by the devil. They can not only mess up, they can be literally led by the devil. The devil can lead you to do stuff. He's led me to do stuff. Jesus was not afraid to confront him or rebuke him. That's a good lesson for you to learn. It's okay sometimes to correct people. If you're young, you have to be careful on how you're correcting adults. But you can correct your friends, you can help them, you can rebuke people. So that Jesus was not afraid of who he's going to, he rebuked the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, but all those people. Jesus was not afraid to confront. Time to rebuke back. There is a time when someone's correcting you and they're wrong, you can stand up for yourself. Other times you just be real quiet, let God vindicate you. God will help you. Time to rebuke back, because sometimes I do that. And then, whose voice are you listening to? I read a rap years ago. Whose voice are you listening to? Whose voice are you speaking in your ear? I can't remember it, actually. But anyway, whose voice are you listening to? Watch your thoughts. You got to be really, really super careful. You got to watch your thoughts, who you're listening to. All right, I'll end with that. That's really good stuff. I hope you learned a lot from that. It's fun talking to you. Thanks for listening.